Dear students, I am going to give you a pictorial presentation of Mulk Anand's The Lost Child. Mulk Anand was an Indian writer in English. He was born on 12 December 1905. He was educated at Khalsa College, Amritsar, the University of Punjab, and University College, London. He wrote many novels and short stories. His first novel, Untouchable, was published in the year 1935. He won the Sahitya Academy Award for his novel, The Morning Face. He was honored with the Padma Bhushan Award in 1967. He died in the year 2004. The Lost Child is a short story written by Mulk Anand. It is a story about a boy who was lost in a fair. It is taken from the collection The Lost Child and Two Lyrical Stories. The story concentrates on a child's desire for everything. It deals with the child's aspiration, demands, and realization. It was the festival of spring, celebrated in commemoration of the divine love of Radha for Krishna. There was a fair in a nearby village. A large group of colorfully dressed people appeared from the chilly shades of narrow footpath. Some walked, some rode on horses, and others travelled in bamboo and bullock carts. They proceeded towards the village fair. One little boy went to the fair with his parents. Many things on the way attracted him. He was frequently moving away from his parents towards the things that attracted him. His parents had to call him many times to keep him beside them. He was attracted by a toy shop. He could not suppress the desire of his heart. "I want that toy," he pleaded. His father looked at him red-eyed. His mother, melted by the spirit of the day, was kind and said, "Look, child, what is before you?" Then they came near a flowering mustard field, pale like melting gold. A group of dragonflies were bustling about. The child followed them. He entered the mustard field and tried to catch the dragonfly. Then his mother gave a cautionary call. "Come, child, come on to the footpath." He ran towards his parents cheerfully. On the way they spent some time in the shade of a grove. His parents sat on the edge of a well in the grove. As the child entered the grove, a shower of young flowers fell upon the child, and forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hands. Then they took the narrow, winding path which led to the fair. The fair had many attractions for the boy. A sweetmeat seller hawked, "Gulab jamun, barfi, jalebi, gulab jamun, rasgulla, barfi, jalebi." The child stared open-eyed, and his mouth watered for the barfi that was his favorite sweet. "I want that barfi," he slowly murmured. But he knew that his plea would not be heeded because his parents would say he was greedy. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. A flower seller hawked, "A gallon of gulmahar, a gallon of gulmahar, a gallon of gulmahar." The child seemed irresistibly drawn. He went towards the basket where the flowers lay heaped and half murmured, "I want that garland." But he well knew his parents would refuse to buy those flowers for him because they would say that they were cheap. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. The next attraction was the rainbow-colored balloons. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green, and purple balloons flying from it. The child was simply carried away by the silken colors of the balloons. He was filled with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. But he knew his parents would never buy him the balloons. They would say he was too old to play with such toys. So he walked on. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket. The child went towards him, but knowing his parents had not allowed him to hear such music, he proceeded on. The greatest attraction was a roundabout in full swing. Men, women, and children, carried away in a whirling motion, shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. The child watched them eagerly, and then he made a bold request. I want to go on the roundabout, please, father, mother. There was no reply. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there. He turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. A full, deep cry rose within his dry throat, and he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear. The weeping child ran about in search of his parents. He ran to one side first, then to the other, hither and thither in all directions, knowing not where to go. Mother! Father! He cried. A man in the crowd heard his cry. He lifted him up in his arms and asked, How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you? The child wept more bitterly than ever and cried, I want my mother! I want my father! The man tried to soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. Will you have a ride on the horse? He gently asked. The child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs, and he only shouted, I want my mother! I want my father! The man took him to the place where the snake charmer stood. Listen to that nice music, child, he pleaded. But the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted, I want my mother! I want my father! The man took him near the balloons and asked, Would you like a rainbow-colored balloon? The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed, I want my mother! I want my father! The man, still trying to make the child happy, took him to the flower cellar. Look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put round your neck? The child turned his nose away from the basket and sobbed, I want my mother! I want my father! Thinking to console him by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the sweet shop. What sweets would you like, child? The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, I want my mother! I want my father! The man tried to console the child, but the child remained inconsolable. All he wanted was to be with his parents. The story has an open ending, and it is left to the guessing of the reader whether the child finds his parents or not.